All right. Cheers and salutations. Welcome one and all to Americans Learn. My name is Kit. Please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe and hit that ring bell notification. That way all you lovely, beautiful people are made aware when we upload new content. You guessed it, upon our YouTube channel. And today, we got ourselves a fun video to check out. It is titled From Bedtime Stories. There's something on the moon. So when you look at the moon this evening or on All Hallows Eve, you might see something staring back into your soul. Perhaps there is something there. But maybe it's best we don't be asking too many questions. All right, let's go ahead and enjoy this video. The original link is in the description box below. So let's go ahead and check this video out in a 3, a 2, and an Uno.
It has been nearly 50 years since the last human being set foot upon the lunar surface. Were budget constraints really the driving force behind this decision, or was it something far more sinister? If the accounts of certain whistleblowers are to be believed, then it might just be that there is something on the moon.
Oh no. Aliens. Aliens. Cryptids.
History tells us that between 1969 and 1972, American astronauts completed a total of 6 successful landings on the surface of the moon.
Hashtag let's land on the moon again and let's return back to Mars. Well, not return back. Let's go to Mars. I don't know. Hey, listen, who knows how this election turns out, but if Elon can get us to Mars, let's do it.
The last of these missions, Apollo 17, concluded on the 19th of December 1972, when Eugene Cernan, Harrison Schmitt, and Ronald Evans were recovered from the Pacific Ocean by the crew of the USS Ticonderoga. But despite a further 3 Apollo missions having been planned to follow on from this, no other manned expedition from any nation has since taken place. The official justification behind this sudden reversal in NASA's lunar exploration program was a shift in both the financial and political landscapes. At the height of the Cold War, America's victory in the space race, being the first major power to achieve a successful manned landing, provided Richard Nixon with the prestige and propaganda he needed over his Soviet rivals.
We can thank Kennedy for that.
But the overall costs of the program had rocketed from an initial estimate of $7 billion to well over 20, and this huge expenditure proved difficult to maintain.
No. No.
The technology available at the time only allowed for a period of mere hours on the moon's surface on each occasion. And with no natural resources or significant scientific material forthcoming from the first few trips, NASA found it impossible to secure the funding needed to carry out what remained of their program. With the landmark victory now achieved by the Western powers, Russia's passion for space exploration also cooled, and as subsequent missile treaties limited any further advancement in the field, dreams of a lunar colony were slowly relegated to the pages of science fiction. In the
Yeah, and that's where it leads us here. Now. Hey, remember we used to land on the moon? Not no more, we don't.
decades that followed, an intermittent stream of probes and robotic landers from nations such as India, China, and the USA have all been dispatched to different regions of our nearest heavenly body. The majority of these have ultimately ended up crashing into the lunar surface, either due to technical failure or after fulfilling their purpose. And yet despite all of these expeditions, we know little more about the moon than we did at the start of the 1970s. Throughout the years that have passed since the sudden conclusion of the Apollo program, there have been several reports that the crews involved encountered more than just rock and dust. Stories of strange tracks observed on the ground near landing zones, mysterious objects seen floating in the sky, and imposing alien structures glimpsed way off in the distance have all emerged. In some cases, these claims are supported by poor quality and grainy photographs.
Okay, look, we all know that of the congressional hearing where, Congress finally held a hearing about aliens and UFOs, and even Trump on Joe Rogan's show said, yes, space people are visiting. That's why we have Space Force. Okay, he didn't say that entirely, but hey, aliens, look, man. Everybody right now is struggling. We don't need no bull from you guys right now, okay? So, to the little green men on Mars, to the sexy, voluptuous ladies on Venus, leave us alone, because if you ain't going to make our lives better or help us make more money, take your bullshit somewhere else.
In others, audio files that have either been erased or edited are offered up as evidence of a conspiracy. Throughout all these stories, there is, however, a common thread. The moon may already be home to existing residents, inhabitants who do not appreciate unwanted intrusions. In 2015, an article began to circulate on Reddit, purporting to be from a British psychologist who had viewed confidential reports divulging that further moon landings had taken place since Apollo 17, and detailing exactly what had happened to them. And whilst there are many aspects of this alleged testimony that are either impossible to verify or comfortably easy to debunk, there are elements of it which commentators claim add credence to similar tales surrounding NASA's official landings. The anonymous source claimed that the astronauts of Apollo 17 had not travelled far from their landing site when they came across the shattered remains of another landing craft. In addition to the severely damaged vehicle itself were the bodies of a number of cosmonauts, all of which appeared to be Soviet in origin.
Oh, the Soviets landed on the moon. I don't know. Did they? I'm all for a good mystery and a good conspiracy, but come on. Even the Soviets wouldn't shut up about their people. Well, they want to hide the story what happened to that poor doggo that went to space. Yes, folks. If you Google a dog launched in space by the Soviets, it's a very tragic story.
But it was not the unexpected appearance of this debris field that most shocked the astronauts. More that all of the wounds and damage inflicted upon the victims seemed to have been caused by a physical assault of some kind, rather than any form of decompression or collision impact. The hull of the Russian spacecraft had been repeatedly torn and punctured by an unknown source, with the glass faceplates on the helmets of the dead cosmonauts all smashed in an identical fashion. The American crew had immediately returned to their lander and requested permission to lift off again, only to be told that they had to remain on the ground for several more hours due to technical issues. During this time, they sent increasingly panicked radio transmissions, claiming they could see shadowy figures moving around on the hills outside, gradually making their way closer to the module. This psychologist detailed that there was a joint British and Russian mission to return to the crash site in 1989, and that he had been asked to assist with debriefing the crew of this expedition when it returned home. The Russian lander successfully arrived in the vicinity of Apollo 17's landing zone in December of 1990, only for the crew to be attacked by unknown entities.
What? Wait.
This attack was watched in disbelief by their controllers at the Okhotsk launch site, before all contact with them was lost. Is the surface of the moon littered with the remains of previous landings, the existence of which has been covered up by the nations who secretly dispatched them there? There is evidence that Russia has yet to disclose the full extent of their endeavours in this direction. personnel records of cosmonauts involved in the program were allegedly altered to hide the deaths of pilots involved in failed missions, and amateur radio enthusiasts claim to have monitored desperate transmissions from dying cosmonauts whose craft malfunctioned in orbit. Whilst orbiting the Moon during May of 1969, Apollo 10 crew members Gene Cernan and John Young reported that they could hear strange noises emanating from the surface below. This phenomenon consisted of an eerie whistling sound, which the two men described as outer space music. Their controllers were at a loss to explain what the astronauts were hearing.
Okay, okay, now I'm going to look at the moon a little bit differently. Last thing I need to do is hear space music. Maybe snake jazz.
And it is only in later years that the incident has been attributed to feedback generated between VHF transmitters situated in different parts of their spacecraft. Another strange tale surfaced after the conclusion of the Apollo 15 mission in July of 1971. Transcripts of radio transmissions which took place whilst crew members David Scott and James Irwin were outside their lander reveal that they stumbled across what appeared to be vehicle tracks at the base of Mount Hadley. They described these impressions as linear, running from east to west, and totally uniform in nature. And yet, one of the most defining features of Apollo 15 is that it was the first expedition to be equipped with an experimental lunar rover.
Oh, okay. Nice.
It is, however, the claims that the crew of the iconic Apollo 11 mission reported multiple sightings of unidentified spacecraft and structures on the Moon that have most captured the imagination of conspiracy theorists. The first of these encounters was reported only 3 days into their mission, when Commander Neil Armstrong requested clarification of where the third stage of the mission's Saturn V rocket was in relation to the main vessel. After a 3-minute delay, he was informed that the Jettison rocket housing should have been situated 6,000 miles behind the lunar module, which was still travelling away from Earth and towards the Moon.
Okay.
Armstrong's subsequent reply to this information would create a ripple of confusion and uncertainty amongst the mission controllers. He had been notified by colleague Buzz Aldrin that something was travelling on a parallel course alongside their ship. Armstrong described the object as metallic, shaped like a cylinder, with what appeared to be a light source emanating from one end. After he had lost sight of the mysterious object, he had again asked NASA for clarification, and was informed it was possibly a loose piece of metal panelling, which may have been blown clear of the main booster. An even more disturbing radio conversation is believed to have taken place between Armstrong and the Houston Control Center in the immediate aftermath of his arrival on the Moon.
What?
During a 2-minute period, where transmissions between the mission and its controllers had apparently failed, it is alleged that Armstrong had continued to transmit on a secondary radio channel, designed to monitor the health and welfare of the astronauts.
Okay, this is starting to get a little creepy.
Although not heard by the general public, it is claimed that transcripts from this channel show that Armstrong reported he could see metallic objects at the edge of a nearby crater. He described buildings that led down under the Moon's surface, and what appeared to be metallic vehicles parked up in lines outside these constructs. Although he supposedly...
Well, what do you want? Huh? Come here to say hello? Wait, hold on. Wait a minute. If the aliens there are parking, you all better pay us some money. Give us some money. Money us now.
took many pictures with his chest-mounted camera. These images have never been published. As he was ordered to withdraw to the lander, he was then asked if he had managed to deploy the scientific equipment he had been tasked with. He replied that he had, but was concerned that the occupants of the craft he had seen were observing him and would easily remove the items he had just positioned. In the years since the Apollo 11 mission, a number of witnesses have come forward claiming that when they had challenged Armstrong on the sighting in private, he had freely admitted it to them, on the grounds that they did not record the conversation. He is alleged to have expressed great apprehension and fear about the craft he encountered, believing that they were trying to actively warn humans away from any further exploration of the moon. The deaths of two...
Okay, that is... Okay, well, the hair on the back of my neck are starting to stick up. Why don't you want to check out the moon?
prominent ufologists in October of 2018 have recently generated a great deal of speculation within the media. Although apparently unrelated, both men were former members of the United States military and had risen to prominence on the basis of allegations they had made regarding NASA and how it had concealed evidence of extraterrestrial life on the surface of the moon. Bob Dean had served as a sergeant major in the US Army and had spent the majority of the 1960s stationed at various military facilities on the European mainland. During this time, he claimed that NASA had secretly destroyed up to 40 rolls of film which had been shot by the astronauts of the Apollo 11 mission. So underhand were the tactics allegedly deployed by the space agency, Dean often joked that the acronym secretly stood for Never a Straight Answer.
That's actually pretty clever. NASA! Can we get to the moon? Well... Oh, look over there.
In addition to this claim, Dean also stated that during his time in the army, he had read a top-secret dossier which evaluated the potential threat to humanity by extraterrestrial invaders. This document contained photographs of a number of downed alien spacecraft, and the findings from the autopsies which had later taken place on their pilots. Within a week of Dean's death at his home in Tucson on October the 11th, authorities in Lansing, New York, were called to the scene of a fatal traffic accident. A 74-year-old cyclist named Carl Wolf had been crushed to death when he had been hit by a tractor. Not only was Wolf a former US Air Force sergeant, but he was also a whistleblower who claimed to have seen terrifying evidence proving there were indeed aliens on the moon.
No.
In 1965, Wolf had been stationed at Langley Air Force Base in Virginia, specializing as an electronics technician. His primary duty was the evaluation and repair of various photographic systems which had been deployed by the Air Force during the Vietnam conflict. But one day, he found himself temporarily reassigned to NASA's Lunar Orbiter project. Wolf described how he reported to a nondescript hangar on the far side of the base, which was largely occupied by scientists and translators dressed in civilian clothing. He was led to a room where he met another airman, who explained that NASA was having issues producing photographs from the most recent lunar mission, as one of their developing machines was malfunctioning. Having worked with his colleague to locate and rectify the fault, Wolf was amazed to see a series of images from what appeared to be the lunar landscape, complete with a whole city of mysterious alien structures. He described having seen towers, domes, and mushroom-shaped buildings, all allegedly situated on the dark side of the moon.
Beware the dark side of the moon, eh?
The NCO had been stunned by what he had witnessed, and had fully expected that he would be hearing about the discovery on the evening news. But as weeks turned into months, he eventually realized that the government had no intention of revealing the existence of the alien city to the world. In 2001, along with 20 other former servicemen and intelligence officials, he finally went public with his story. Certainly, many photographs sent back by probes in orbit around the moon show some interesting anomalies, with lights appearing in craters and the apparent depiction of unnatural structures, some of which are several miles high. There are also those who assert that the moon may not even be a natural satellite at all, at least not in the most conventional sense. Some commentators believe that the surface of the moon is merely an external shell for something far more sinister, such as a space station or gigantic alien spacecraft.
Okay. Oh, now come on. No, we're not doing Beast Wars, okay? They did that in the first season. About if you're not familiar with the old school 3D animated show Beast Wars, Optimus Primal. No, not Optimus Prime. Optimus Primal and his band land on planet Earth, but prehistoric Earth. And there's 2 moons, but one of the moons is hollow and turns out to be a device used as a way to exterminate the planet should there be interlopers like Cybertronians, Maximals versus Predacons.
The claim is similar to that of the Hollow Earth theory, whose supporters believe that there is a vast network of tunnels and caverns under the Earth's surface, which humanity is unaware of. As evidence of their claims, hollow moon theorists point to data produced by seismometers which were left on the moon's surface by each of the Apollo missions. Between 1972 and 1977, these instruments recorded a series of geological movements underneath the lunar landscape, all of which varied in scale and intensity. During the Apollo 12 mission, the decision was made to deliberately crash the ascent stage of the crew's lunar module back onto the surface. In the aftermath of this, monitoring stations back on Earth recorded a strange reverberation that continued for an hour. Apparently, the moon rang like a bell. For subscribers of the hollow moon theory, this is evidence of vibrations echoing around huge spaces, buried beneath the thin layer of rock and dust we see. As we sift through the various stories that have emerged from the Apollo program, it is ostensible that there may well have been events and occurrences on the moon's surface which defy conventional explanation.
Okay, yes. Would there be top secret missions being done? I could see that happening. But then again, never forget the quote from Cat Williams that he said earlier this year. All lies will be exposed. And after everything we saw in 2020, you know what? We might very well see something that we're not ready for. And there might be stories and shenanigans that took place in the 70s and 80s, 60s, 70s, and 80s about humanity and its interactions with aliens and why we never went back to the moon. But according to Trump, Elon's going to take us to Mars. So take that, moon people.
In some of these cases, NASA has provided varying degrees of justification. In others, either by action or inaction, they have allowed evidence which might have assisted in divining the truth to be destroyed. In reality, the physical and mental stress produced during the lunar missions may be a factor, and could have affected the psychology of those involved. In the large number of reported incidents, the experiences of the astronauts can easily be attributed to optical illusions and the unforeseen failure of the equipment and material they were utilizing. And yet, the public imagination continues to be captured by stories of sinister lunar residents. Perhaps there is indeed some truth behind the rumours, and in the decades to come, we will discover that we do indeed have celestial neighbours we were previously unaware of. And if that is the case, we can only hope they do not object to sharing this little corner of the galaxy with the human race.
Yeah, what's your beef? Why you got a problem with us? Okay. Music's a little frightening there. A little interesting about what's going on, but okay. Hold on, I'm looking at some of the comments here in the video. Imagine chilling on the moon with your comrades, then all of a sudden you get surrounded and beaten to death by a gang of aliens. What a way to go. Hold on. The first nightclub on the moon was an abject failure. There was no atmosphere. Okay, that's pretty funny. Hold on. Let's see. Somebody wrote, the most unbelievable part of this is not only did the Soviets get men on the moon, but they didn't immediately brag about it as soon as they were in orbit of the moon. You see, now that's the thing. The Soviets would have been bragging about this. An external shell for something far more sinister, just a space station or gigantic alien spacecraft. Palpatine laughing in the distance. Hold on, what else we got here? And so it came to pass that the aliens emerged from their buildings, shook their fists, and yelled, "Get off our lawn, you human punks!" Let's see, what else? What else we got here? Do 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 do. Hold on, I want to find something. It's definitely the long lost Autobot ship, the Ark, with its captain Sentinel Prime, as well as several hundred or so Decepticons. A number of cosmonaut who appeared to be Soviet origin. Isn't that a little redundant? Okay. The public should have access to all the raw footage from all space flights. We paid for it. Absolutely. I like that idea. And somebody said, let's say for argument's sake that there is an alien city on the moon. They've probably been picking up our TV signals, so they're probably been watching our TV shows. Isn't forcing keeping up the Kardashians on them more than a decade more than enough revenge for attacking human expeditions on the moon? They're like, humans, please stop with this reality TV show. We'll let you visit our moon again if you just stop with this garbage. Let's see. Hold on. There is no dark side of the moon, really. As a matter of fact, it's all dark. Pink Floyd. All right. Okay. So what can we learn from this? I mean, obviously, there are some questions about why we never returned back to the moon. But if Trump gets his way, he gets elected in office, he has been stating on the record that Elon's going to get us to Mars. But before we get to Mars, we got to get back to the moon. So let's do it. Let's create a glorious space crusade in our glorious emperor's name and begin the human empire, as it should be. A glorious imperium, dare I say it, of mankind. But what are your thoughts? Do you think we'll ever go back and land on the moon again? You think there is a secret alien civilization on the moon? Is the moon hollow? Do aliens want us to get off their lawn? Did the Soviets land on it? No such thing as a wrong answer. Type, you lovely, beautiful people, in the description box below. Be safe out there and have a very safe, happy All Hallows Eve, as you should. And the next time you look at the moon, beware, something might be staring back at you.